does it take to remain faithful when everything you own, everything you've built, and even your safety are suddenly at risk? I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBM, we're sitting down with a terrific writer, a terrific thinker, and a terrific young woman. Her name is Susan Billings Mitchell. She has penned a powerful book. It is called Forever Stalwart in Missouri, A Time of Testing. It is a powerful account, a true account of early Latter-day Saint pioneers facing persecution, sacrifice, courage, and conviction in the Missouri era. From Titus Billings to Isaac Morley to the faithful women whose quiet strength helped carry families through crisis, this is a story of history, hardship, and unshakable faith. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Susan, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Pleasure to have you on the show. This subject matter, in many ways, is very personal to you because you're the great-great-granddaughter, I understand, of Titus Billings, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the motivation to tell his story and the stories that other brave people had to persevere through in order to defend their faith.
I think true stories are so important. I think they empower us, the stories of the past. But in all honesty, my father asked me to write this. So
Hmm.
Titus Billings had a journal, but his daughter said it was destroyed. He ran for his life so many times. And Dad asked me to recreate his story. He's mentioned here and there and everywhere. And Dad said, I want it accurate and I want it interesting. So
Hmm.
I spent 3 decades researching. Of course, I was raising 9 children at the same time, but
Wow.
and then I wrote what I call a historical account. It has all the facts and documented, but it's very boring. And then I turned myself loose and tried to make it read like a novel.
Hmm.
You have to be very careful when you're using real names. So it was a super challenge. In fact, I had a BYU professor tell me, you can't do that. Just forget the names and write a story. And I said, oh no, I am doing this for actual factual history.
Yeah,
If we don't learn from
absolutely.
history, we have to do it again. So
Exactly. Those who forget about history are doomed to repeat it. So I think it is great that you did keep it factually accurate, but with a writer's flair. I think you are absolute, or a novelist's flair, I should say. You did a great job in writing this book. For the folks at home who've heard the name Titus Billings, but don't quite know who he was, tell us a little bit about Titus.
okay. He was a Mormon pioneer. Actually, the series of books starts in Ohio and goes all the way across the plains to Manti. And this
Mhm.
is his story. He is a brother-in-law to Isaac Morley. Isaac was older, but they did everything together.
Mhm.
And I thought this story was done in 1999. I was telling my mother, I'm going to have to write a sequel because it doesn't do justice to my grandma. I come through the second wife. And mom was sick with leukemia, but she shook her finger at me and said, that's why you're supposed to tell the story, take care of your grandma.
Mhm.
So I started over and I wove the three family stories together. Edward Tuttle is a year older than Titus,
Mhm.
and his daughter, Marianne, was the age of Titus's daughter. But later, in the end, for many reasons, he does take her as a second wife.
Mhm.
And so by doing it this way, you know her and her people. And by the time you get to Manti, you know who she is.
Yeah. Amazing. How many books are there in the series, the
There
Stalwart
are
series?
five right now, five that tell the story. Well, these tell the complete story,
Mhm.
but there's a bonus number six coming. So in the great big fat book that I did first, it's
Yeah.
so heavy. My aunt said, the problem with your book is I can't read it in bed. But at the end, there is an appendix for each of the families with pictures and maps and documents in it. And
Hmm.
they had to be black and white in this big book. But
Wow.
right now we're formatting volume six, which will have all of these in color. Plus, it has the
Wonderful.
full bibliography, which is 18 pages, single space. I want people to have all these references if they really want to find them.
Amazing, amazing. Talk to us a little bit about your research for your book. It's rooted in deep historical research. How did you uncover some of these lesser known struggles from the Missouri era?
Oh, it's been a journey, a very special journey. I started before computers. I was using the yellow pad and a pen. And then I heard of Mary Ann, so my grandma's sister, had a journal that's in special collections in the library in Salt Lake.
Mhm.
And it had a story in it that I was really intrigued with. It's an event where Brigham Young, right after Joseph Smith was martyred, Brigham Young is speaking to the congregation, and many people saw him look and sound like the prophet. Well, I wanted proof of that. So I go up there and I sit in this glass-walled room and I write it out. And now it's just online. I said, my grandchildren aren't going to understand how hard I worked to find this stuff. But it was just a neat journey. And I feel like I've had help from the other side. I
Mm,
think Grandpa wants his story told and his testimony shared.
yeah,
So it's been a
absolutely.
great journey.
I'm sure it has. It sure has. You come from a family with a rich history, a culture that has a rich history, and to share that story, the struggles, the trials, the triumphs, is wonderful work. The
You know,
title,
another
go ahead.
thing, um, when my parents first went back to Missouri, my brother was already there and they had him verify the land. So Titus Billings was giving a stewardship property in the heart of Independence,
Mm,
27 and a half acres.
wow.
And he was driven off, burned off. So my dad wanted to know where it was. Well, there's a hospital on the northern end of the property, but if you go south where the train tracks cross, there was, I think, about 3 acres for sale by the railroad. And my dad bid on it almost as a joke. Long
Mhm.
story short, he bought the land, he built a beautiful home, and downstairs he made a Titus Billings guest room. It was a pioneer room. And so we were living in different states at the time, but when I'd get my school teacher husband and my children in school, I would go spend a week in that basement in the Titus Billings room and research and write. And it was just a sacred
Wow.
experience for me.
Amazing. What a great connection that this research and writing has done for you and your family and your lineage. The title, Forever Stalwart in Missouri, A Time of Testing. Talk to us about what you mean by a time of testing in the context of this volume.
Okay. So really, volume one starts in Ohio, and it's a time of discovery. That's where they discover the church, but it's also where Titus and Diantha discover each other. So it's a little bit of a love story.
Hmm.
And then you go to book two, and it's a time of testing. There was so much testing in Missouri. So many, many things happen. And these stories are really kind of the back stories, the behind the scenes stories that you don't really know. But these are true people. And I thought they're amazing stories. And some of the amazing things women did in Missouri too. When their
Hmm.
husbands, Titus had gone to help bodyguard the prophet. When they came to they burned down
Hmm.
Isaac Morley's uh, cooper shop and she saw that. Then they were driven to Illinois, and that's a
Hmm.
time of sacrifice. And even their prophet was sacrificed in Illinois. Then they crossed the plains, so it's Iowa, Nebraska, and Wyoming. And I try to just share what it was like to go
Hmm.
across the plains at that time. They land in Utah, and also crossing the plains is a time of enduring, and then Utah is a time of refining.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Titus Billing is commanded by revelation to sell Morley Farm and lead a group of saints to Missouri. How
Yeah.
difficult was that moment and why was it so pivotal?
You know, it used to bother me. How could somebody sell somebody else's farm? But right here in the Doctrine and Covenants section, 69, 63, verse 39, he is commanded, let my servant Titus Billings, who has care thereof, dispose of the land and use the monies to buy property in Missouri. Well, Isaac and Titus, like I said, they did everything together. Isaac had been called on a mission to Missouri, and he left Titus in charge. But he wasn't just left in charge of the farm. It was a community. A lot of people had moved, they built homes there. They called it the big family. These
Hmm.
people were trying to live common law. Lyman White had come and introduced it with Sidney Rigdon. And so he was in charge of a lot. But I found in my research, Titus Billings owned a lot of that land. He had a lot of the deeds too.
Yeah.
So When he was commanded, he obeyed. Now, I'll
Yeah.
tell you something that is kind of funny to me. I was in the BYU down in their special collections, and I was reading. This is a descendant of Isaac Morley had written, oh, what do you call it, dissertation for, and it's there. And I was reading through it. Bless his heart, he mistakens. He calls Grandpa a son-in-law, but he was a brother-in-law. But anyway, he made the comment, and this is his editorializing, not mine. He made the comment that it probably would have been hard for Isaac to do, but Titus was so obedient. So anyway, he did legally obey, and then he was commanded to lead a group of saints
Hmm.
to Missouri.
Amazing, amazing. As we kind of touched upon, Titus deeds all of his belongings to the church for a stewardship property. What does that tell us about faith? What does it tell us about sacrifice and consecration in that period?
Tells me he was very obedient
Hmm.
and stalwart. That's why I picked
Yeah,
stalwart. I think it was always stalwart. A lot of his friends fell off the wagon, but Titus did not. He stayed stalwart to the end. And that's my desire and goal, to be stalwart forever.
yeah. And one of the vivid moments of the book is Titus building a huge haystack of wild prairie grass to feed the animals of the saints. Talk to us a little bit about why that detail stands out to you.
Okay, so I found one of it's in his handwriting, and he said, because many people were a coming and the
Mhm.
season was late, and so he had this idea to harvest the prairie grass, and he made this gigantic haystack. It was on property that Bishop Partridge had rented from Governor Boggs.
Mm.
And they worked so hard on it. Well, the second time around, I mean, it was a giant. It was supposed to be the biggest haystack in the world. And then he takes the last load. In fact, in my book, I have him spend the night with hay in the wagon, which he Diantha said he never did, but he did that night, and then when he and the boys go to deliver it, they see that the haystack was torched and burned to the ground.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. And that was an act of hate and rebellion, I guess, on the part of people who are opposed to his religious views.
Yes,
Yeah.
uh, opposition in all things.
Yeah.
So my mother, while she lived out there, she belonged to the Missouri Frontier Foundation, something she did a lot of at the museum, and they gave her a plaque that was made. I wish I had it to show you right now. There is a picture of it in this book, but they gave her a plaque that has a drawing on it about the haystack.
Mm.
And that was very significant. That was just one
Yeah.
of the sacrifices.
Amazing. Titus attends the school of prophets and serves as a bodyguard to the prophet. Talk to us a little bit about that chapter in his life.
Um, so he wasn't in the first school of prophets, but when they did one in Independence, I have to tell you this. You ask about research.
Yep.
So I am up in again in that special room researching, and a young man comes to the gentleman who's sitting in the table next to me, and he starts asking him, talking to him about the School of the Prophets. And he was a student doing research for this author.
Mm.
And I couldn't help but hear, well, it was time to go. So I gathered up my things and I excused myself and I said, I couldn't help but hear you say that if anyone was in the School of Prophets, you would know. And we were trying to prove if our grandfather was there. He
Mm.
said, well, who's your grandfather? And I said, Titus Billings. And he said, oh, yes, he was there. Come with me. And we went out of that glass room into an office. The door was open, so I couldn't read the name on the door. He walks into the office and he pulls a book off the shelf and opens it up. Now, I need to tell you, my mother was a great genealogist, and she had everywhere she found Titus's name, she'd take a Xerox picture of the page and put the reference. Well, I was trying to go through every one of these, and I had a Xerox picture of a page, but the book was not available.
Mm.
He opens it up, and I recognized it, and I said, to whom am I speaking? And he said, I'm Lyndon Cook. I said, "You wrote this book?" And he said, "Yes, he did." I told him I'd been trying to find it. So he Xeroxed a copy of it, the whole story. Mom just had pieces, and then I had him autograph it. So
Wow.
that was validation that he was really in the School of Prophets.
Amazing. Amazing. You've talked about this a little bit, touched upon it before. The Missouri period included fires, forced evacuations, mob violence, and of course, tremendous loss. Talk to us about how you balance telling the harsh truth without losing the spiritual heart of the story.
Well, I didn't realize it when I was writing it, but when I went back and looked, I think there's a theme in there, opposition in all things.
Hmm.
And this book taught me when the Lord does something good, Satan has to do something to offset it.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious, it just keeps happening. And that's how it is in our lives. And that's why it's so important to me that my posterity understand. There's both in the world, and you get to use your agency to choose which you're going to follow.
Hmm.
So, yes, they had a lot of opposition, but they had a lot of blessings too. And they were
Yeah.
close to the Lord, and He guided them. And
Exactly.
they paid a price.
Yeah. Titus loses everything in those fires set by the angry mobs. How did he keep going after that kind of devastation?
That's a good question. And you know what flabbergasted me?
Hmm.
When I was writing about crossing the plains, he was 55 years old when he walked across the plains. And
Wow.
at the time, I thought, my goodness. So I appreciate his strength. He was stalwart. He just never
Yeah.
gave up.
The
And I'm sure
battle
the
of,
Lord made
I'm
it
so,
possible.
yeah, that's part of it. I mean, determination, perseverance, faith, the guiding hand of God, all of that will keep you going, despite the obstacles that people throw in your way, despite whatever opposition in all things that you face. So I think it's a beautiful example of his faith. Talk to us about the Battle of Crooked River. It's a major moment in this history.
Yes, so I grew up, any descendant of Titus Billings knows about the Battle of Crooked River.
Yeah.
And an interesting thing, when my father was living out there, he got to know a lot of old timers and find a lot of treasures that are in these books. But he got permission to take the missionaries who came out there before they went home from their mission. He would take them on a tour of all the historical sites there. And he got permission from this farmer to go down to the Crooked River where the battle was.
Mm.
And he used to always knock on the door, and the guy finally said, "Mr. Billings, I trust you. You can just take any group anytime." So that was neat. Dad took me once. But the Battle of Crooked River, so when you research, you're going to find controversy. Some people say Titus was born on the 24th of March. Some say the
Mm.
25th. So I put all these references say this, all those say that. I'm not going to decide. I celebrate both days for him.
Yeah.
In this case, okay, I got it. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
no
Hey,
worries.
I'm almost 80 years old. I got to get these
You're
books
doing
done.
great. You've got better recall than I have. Don't worry.
So the thing was, they're in far west Missouri now. And the thing was, if the drum went off or if the trumpet sounded. Now, see, some say it was trumpet, some say it was drum. So I had them both go off. But
Mm.
anyhow, it went off at midnight. And that was the call that you've got to come. So Titus had just got new boots. He hadn't had time to season them. As I understand it, they were just the same, and you'd wear them, and then they would become left and right. Well, he
Mm.
put his new boots on and he went to the square, and they left because Bogart's army was camped at the bottom of the down the Crooked River, and they had actually threatened some people who lived outside of Far West. They'd taken three Mormon prisoners and said they were going to kill them by
Mm.
daylight. So these men gathered and they went to try and save them. One interesting thing, and if I was a painter, I would paint this.
Yeah.
As they did their march, actually they divided in three groups and spanned out, and then they regrouped again and they were coming down the hill just as the sun was coming up behind the hill.
Wow.
So the Mormon soldiers were silhouetted by the sun,
Mm.
and Bogart's group were below. And so they had an unfair disadvantage.
Yeah.
But as they were coming, um, one of the soldiers on guard kind of got spooked and shot. He didn't shoot anybody, but he shot, and that alarmed everybody. And so David Patton, General Patton, commanded a charge, and they started charging. Now
Hmm.
Titus was actually beside General Patton, between him and Hendricks.
Hmm.
And as they charged, General Patton was shot and fell. And Titus, in the report, which really his daughter writes it, but it's his story, he says he saw General Patton fall. He was known as No Fear, the leader, No
Hmm.
Fear. But Richard C. Charles Rich, I mean, Charles C. Rich
Hmm.
came to his aid and gave him a blessing and a prayer. And Titus saw him, and then he saw Hendricks, and he said he leaned against a tree to get his bearings for a minute. And anyway, that all happened. But what's sad is the rumors went out that so many, the Mormons had killed so many, and it wasn't true.
Hmm.
Uh, Only a few were killed, and
Yeah.
I don't know the numbers right now, but it's in the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's an amazing chapter in the story, that's for sure. Let's talk a little bit about Isaac Morley. He's falsely accused. He's locked up in prison several times. Talk to us a little bit about his struggles, his trials, his journey.
He becomes known as Father Morley. He was a really good man. They had a lot of meetings and dances and parties at his house. So he was a settler. And when they were, there was an extermination order by the Governor Boggs against Mormons, and they had to run for their lives. And so he left, and when he got to Illinois, he set up a settlement, another settlement. So um, he wanted to name this settlement, and I guess back then they used to name them after the person,
Hmm.
and ended up doing it his name backwards. So Morley settlement is Yelrome.
Gotcha.
And I had a real sweet experience with that actually. It's hard to find Yelrome. And
Hmm.
my dad and I, after mom died, I said, Dad, I've got to go back before I finish this book. I just feel like I'm pulled. So Dad went with me. He's living in Independence. I flew out. Anyhow, we go to the Hancock Museum Center,
Hmm.
Historical Society Center there. And I go in, Dad's waiting in the car, and I go in and I ask if the lady knew anything about Yelrome, if she had any information about Yelrome. She had no clue what I was talking about. But there was an older gentleman in the back, and he said, Oh, I read about that. I said, Where? And she said, Yeah, where? So he starts pulling books out, and it's just little tiny bits. But Isaac Morley here and there. And so I said, Could you copy these for me? So he did. And then he turned at me with the strangest look on his face and he said, How long can you stay here? And I said, Oh, my dad's waiting in the car. I got to go. He said, Well, you need to know something. This copy machine hasn't worked for 2 weeks, and
Hmm.
everything you've handed me has been copied. So
Wow.
I have brought that back. But that's not all. He didn't know exactly where Morley's settlement was, but he said, I think it was around Tioga. So Dad and I left and start driving, and there's a sign Tioga. So we
Hmm.
turn off and go down. We come to a dead end. There's just two little houses there. And I said, Oh, there's a big field. I said, Dad, can I just get out and take a picture? This is as close as we're going to get. He said, Okay. So I get out and I take a picture of this big field. And as I turn to go back to the car, there is a marker that says Morley Settlement, Yellow. We were at the spot and didn't even know it. And all that's
Amazing.
in the book. So if anybody wants to find it now, we tell them how to find it.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. Also in the book, you highlight the faithful sisters and their tender insights during this period. Talk to us about why you wanted to include women's experiences alongside the men's.
Well, they play an important part. Um, One of my favorite heart-wrenching stories is when Titus was uh, bodyguarding for the prophet, and they burned down Morley's cooper shop, and they told these people they had to be out by morning. the mothers didn't know what to do. There were about 15 men that were gone. And so the mothers decided they would take their youngest children and they would all meet at Brother Bibby's house.
Mhm.
I ended up finding out that was really close to where my dad ended up, but his house was built. But anyway, so they decide to go at night so they wouldn't be seen. And it's a very traumatic story. And this is accurate information from Eunice, who was the little girl at the time. And so Diantha has her little ones, a lantern under her apron, and they go through the thicket of the forest because they don't want to be seen. There's been a lot of patrolling on the roads, but they come to a place where they have to cross the road. And so she steps into the road and a man there, and anyway, it ends up it was a member. They startled each other. But he said, go quickly. He said, they've been up and down this road, go quickly. So they get to Brother Bibby's home. You've got all these women, these scared children. They haven't had supper. They don't have quilts. It's really a difficult situation in this crowded little cabin and this old man. But the women take turns guarding, two by two. They put on his clothes and go out and just guard. He happens to have a gun. Most of the guns were confiscated, but he wasn't there, so he still had his. And maybe I should make you read the story.
Exactly. We can save it for the book, but it's fascinating. There's so many great stories in this book, of course. So much of pioneer history is told through big events, but your work focuses also on family, daily survival, and personal strength. Those small details, I feel, bring out so much of the era, the people, the culture, and the faith, don't you think?
Oh, yes. My motto is hearts turn when history talks. And
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to know these true stories. They empower us. I know my grandma wrote her little history. Um, she typed like this,
Yeah.
but I read that. And in her life, she had a daughter with rheumatic fever who had heart problems. She had a son who, when he was a toddler, got hit in the back of the head with a wooden swing, and he
Mm.
had to have brain surgery, which back then that was really something. So then I'm raising my family, and I have two children who have to have open heart surgeries. We have
Wow.
lupus and kidney transplants. And I think if my little grandma can do that, I can do this. It empowers me. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's so important to get these in the hearts of our youth.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you hope people take away from the story? What do you hope they learn about the faith, the people, the history, and the pioneers of this era?
That's a beautiful question.
Thank you.
I think Grandpa would say
Yeah.
that he would hope that they would come into Christ.
Mm.
That's the most important thing, to come into Christ. He did. He always did. He proved that it can be done, and we need to come into Christ.
Yeah. When your father asked you to write the biography of Titus Billings, did you ever think it would become your life's work?
I had no idea what I was getting into. And
Yeah.
the sad thing is, my mother assigned me to edit all the other histories. And I
Yeah.
didn't know what that meant, but I'm now realizing, we have these great big, thick books of remembrance with these stories that are just, the millennials don't have time to read those.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to do is mine the treasures and just do a little story so that they get those. That's my next project.
Tell us a little
So
bit more
I
about your
don't
next
have 30
project.
years for each relative.
But your next project will focus on
Stalwart saints.
wonderful. Wonderful.
I've got other ancestors. When I get over there, I don't want them to feel bad that I didn't do them. So I'm trying to
Exactly.
include their precious stories too. And they are so inspiring. And
Yeah.
it's these quiet behind the scene things that I think are really important and really interesting. I've had some sweet experiences already with my own posterity when they
Yeah.
learn these things.
Yeah. It's
Do I have time
wonderful.
to tell you something, or is our time
Oh
gone?
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So in the Ohio book, chapter 13 is all in letters.
Mhm.
And Diantha and Titus had 9 children in Ohio before they even discovered the church. Oh, how do you make that interesting? So, number 7, I was trying to figure out how to do him. Well, if Titus Billings was in fact able to go back to Massachusetts where he lived for his mother's funeral, he would have crossed over where they were making the Erie Canal. Now, I
Mm.
can't prove that he did, but I just know he would have been interested. I know enough about him and his grandson and water things they've done. His son is the one who was commissioned to dig the reservoir in Delta, Utah.
Wow.
So I had him go work on the Erie Canal and they wrote letters back and forth. Well, the fun thing is, I had a lady reach out to me and she said, "Where did you find those letters?" And I said, "Oh, honey, at the end of every chapter, there's a historical background. It tells where everything is, and it says when something's fictitious. Those letters were fictitious." Oh, she was heartsick. She said, "I know they wrote them."
Amazing, amazing. That's a great note to leave you on today. A great story. So many great stories told today. So many great stories unpacked. Lots of more great stories contained within this amazing series. It is called Forever Stalwart. The book we focus primarily on today is called Forever Stalwart in Missouri, a Time of Testing. It is a powerful, true account of early Latter-day Saint pioneers facing persecution, sacrifice, courage, and conviction in the Missouri era, from Titus Billings and Isaac Morley to the faithful women whose quiet strength helped carry families through the crisis. This is a story of history, hardship, and unshakable faith, and it is told in a beautiful voice, in beautiful prose that you will absolutely cherish, page after page, volume after volume, and you'll be glad another volume is yet to come. Susan, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time, your insight, your talent, your perseverance, and the great work writing and researching these books. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on the Global Book Network.